Welcome everybody to the 17th stream of DBB Live. Hope you've all had a great day so far and ready to talk some Detroit basketball. I'm Wes Davenport from Motor City Hoops and Detroit Bad Boys, and I am joined, as always, by the Aussie himself, Jack Kelly from Detroit Bad Boys. Jack, how you doing tonight? Well, today for you.
I'm good, Wes. I'm good. We're in the part of the off season where there's very little happening. Not only from a Pistons point of view, but just the NBA at large. So, um, yeah, I'm always excited to talk Pistons hoops. No matter if we've got very little to talk about or a lot to talk about, I always love hopping on with you. So yeah, ready to go.
And we are in that dead zone, aren't we? There's not going to be much going on for the next, I think it's about three or 4 weeks before they start showing up to training camp and you start getting a little bit of news, but even that's not much. So, yeah, dead zone of the NBA offseason. But, that being said, wanted to reflect on the offseason. This was something that you wanted to push. So I'm actually going to introduce it and then go first. But just to start off the show, obviously it was a pretty busy offseason for the Pistons, even though they didn't sign a bunch of free agents. They didn't spend a ton of cash. They get a new coach, all the draft day trades, all of that stuff. So really quickly, I was thinking both of us would end up giving the top three like biggest moves, most important moves of the offseason that the Pistons made. So as going first, I was just going to list them out and kind of go back through, give the reasoning on each. So I think the first most important is drafting a SAR. Next is kind of a cop out, but Cade being healthy and specifically that decision retroactively to actually have him undergo surgery rather than pushing through because that's going to be a big deal. And then the third being Monty Williams. So I think just starting off with the SAR, obviously, we weren't, both of us weren't super high on him. We thought he had a lot of potential, but he wasn't necessarily our pick for the Pistons at five. But, that being said, they took him at five, right? They took him at five. And him becoming what the front office thinks he can be is going to be vitally important to the future of the team. So I think that's the most important thing that they did all off season. Next being Cade, that surgery could really swing things for him. I remember thinking at the time, it was a trade off. You could have him undergo surgery now; he's going to miss the year, and ideally be healthy for next year. Or if you have him push through, obviously the risk of re-injury is going to be higher, but he's also going to get the reps that he otherwise missed here. So you were effectively trading positional reps and live game reps for this surgery to try and get him healthy and punt to the next season. So now we see the result of that. And I think that is going to decide almost directly. Like I can't think of a single factor that's going to shift how this season's going to go more than how that decision turns out. So I think that's the second most. And then third, Monty Williams. He's only third because a coach can do so much. Even though he's like 6'8", 6'7", he can't get out on the court and play anymore. So he's not going to be impacting the game that way. But he is a really, really good coach from all reports, everything that we've heard. He was obviously a really, really big hire for the team. And I'm personally really excited to see what he can do with this roster that kind of got crafted for him. There's a lot of options, a lot of paths you could take. So those would be my top three. I don't know if you've got a different top three. Or you just want to react to what I've got, but go for it.
So yeah, I really like that top three. I didn't have Cade being healthy as an off-season move, but I get your rationale behind that one. Um,
It was a
so
stretch.
yeah, but obviously that's vital. And for me, I had Doug. It's 10 a.m. It's 10:06 in the morning. But yeah, back to the thing. I actually had the Monty hire as number one and Asar number two. And I completely understand if people have Asar number one. And it's not even because I don't think Asar is going to be part of the core and be an extremely vital piece to like the next winning Pistons team. It's more because I'm looking at this probably through the lens of how this team performs this season and probably the next two seasons, really. And I think from where the Pistons sort of coaching search was for a fair while and the candidates that were available to get Monty Williams, to get the experienced coaching staff that will sort of sit with him on the bench in the assistant coaches and just the down the line, I think is going to be really important as this team tries to win. And I think the Monty Williams hires, because it was a couple of weeks before the draft, or at least a week before the draft, it's sort of got a little bit lost in the Pistons offseason as a whole when fans sort of discuss and look at it. So I think the hiring of Monty is going to be really exciting, just even from a leadership point of view. Like, this team's still so young. To bring in a head coach that's been to the NBA Finals, coach Chris Paul, coach Devin Booker, had star players. I think it's just going to be really important to help mold this team across the next 2 to 3 seasons as they sort of mature. And then I had Asar second. Clearly, he was the 5th pick overall. We saw what he can do in Summer League. I mean, I can't wait to watch him play, especially with Cade Cunningham. We saw him for a little bit play with Jaden and Jalen, but can't wait to see him in the regular season and how he can impact games, because I think he's going to have his moments. How much, what the box score and the shooting percentages look like for Asar is going to be interesting, but I think he's definitely going to have multiple moments in each game where he makes an impact play, and that's what I'm really excited for. And then the third one I had was, I really like the Monty Morris trade, and I think that picking up Alec Burks' option, although we all assumed that was going to happen, having 2 veterans like that coming off your bench, I think is going to do wonders for this team. We saw Alec Burks last season, just the impact he had. I believe after Christmas, it might have been in January, he was just shooting the cover off the ball. Like, he couldn't miss from 3. He's just that shot creator off the bench that's going to help this team. And then Monte Morris is a Michigan-born kid, I believe. So he's a hometown player. I mean, so that just adds to everything on top of him just being one of the league's most efficient point guards, full stop. Like, he might not be a starter. He might have his limitations defensively, but coming off the bench, in my opinion, he's in that tier of like, how am I going blank? He just got traded from Memphis to Washington. It's not Trey Jones, Tyus Jones, in terms of backup point guards. He's that type of player. He just, when he was with the Nuggets, he got some shine. And then last season he was with an underperforming Wizards team. So he might have got forgotten a little bit, but he's an analytics darling. And I think he's really going to help this team just playing alongside the young point guards. So that was sort of my top 3. And then the wild card I wanted to throw in was this potential trade that we all feel like is going to happen. I still wouldn't put that in my top 3 at all in terms of the value that I think the trade will be, but I think that's definitely the move we're all waiting to happen. So, yeah. We've spoken about it a lot.
To be underwhelming.
Yeah, it's coming.
Honestly. But on a more positive note, with specifically with Monte Morris, just kind of talking around, asking around, I heard that his defensive limitations only really showed up because he was a starter. Like, I heard from a couple of Wizards people that were just kind of chatting it up, and they were saying, like, you stick him back on the bench, have him dealing with bench guards instead of starting point guards, starting shooting guards. Like, he puts a lot of effort in on that end, and that's really going to show up, right? So, yeah, I'm not too worried about it. I think that was a really good one to bring up. But I wanted to throw up this comment just because I think that, part of you ranking Monty Williams so high is just even in response to this, right? Because I think he's spot on, El Blues. I think you're spot on. It's definitely being underrated by fans. It got washed out. It was right before the draft. I mean, he's going to make a big impact to how this team plays on a night-to-night basis. That can't be understated. So, yeah, I think he's definitely being overrated by some fans, and he was a really, really important piece of how this offseason turned out.
Definitely. And like, no shade to Kevin Ollie and Jaron Collins, and who was the other prime candidate? I've gone blank now. Feels like it was ages ago. We're talking coaches.
Charles Lee, right?
Charles Lee. No shade to those guys, but that was the primary options for a large portion of the coaching search. So, Monty Williams, he hasn't won a championship as a coach, but he's pretty much done everything else. And you can say he inherited a pretty good Phoenix roster. He still had that first season without Chris Paul where they made enormous leaps offensively and defensively. They were one of the worst teams in the league, and then we saw the run they had in the bubble where they won it. I think they went 8-0, finished the season with like 33 wins or 34 wins, maybe more. I can't remember off the top of my head, but it's like that in itself just shows he's a guy who can sort of rally around a locker room. And not that this Pistons team has any reported issues in the locker room, like from what I've seen, they all get along really well. But just to have a leader like him galvanize them, I think counts for something. Because Dwayne Casey as well, he said, correct me if I'm wrong, Wes, but I feel like in sort of that, after the final game of the season when he announced he'd be stepping down as coach in Chicago, I believe he said something like it's time for a new voice. So to get a new voice in the locker room like Monty Williams, I've spoken enough about it. I just think it's gone a little bit underrated. You can't post highlights of coaches throughout the offseason. So I understand why it's gone. It's not being discussed as much, but yeah, I can't wait just to get to know Monty just through like press conferences and that sort of thing, and just hear some stories, because I think he's going to have a major impact on the playing group.
Yeah, and that's definitely a real thing there, what you mentioned near the end with like sometimes the coach's voice does just get stale. I mean, that core group of guys, all of them, and Dwayne Casey and the entire coaching staff, I mean, they're spending so much time together. You know, there was a lot of losing going on. There could have been nothing that went actually wrong, right? Relationship wise, in the locker room wise. And you know, the voice just could have gotten stale. That is a real thing that happens. So since he said it, I suspect that is part of what the decision was. So I think it's worth bringing up, like you did.
For sure. And I'm not sure if you wanted to bring up any other off-season moves, but there was something else I wanted to ask you.
I really liked Sasser, that pick. I'm not convinced that he's going to play much before the trade deadline. So I love that move, but I can't say it's going to be super important, in the short term. So I'll hold off on it. Oh, I think Jack might be frozen.
Yeah, for sure. Like he might play in the upcoming season, but then now with the acquisitions they've made and the way the roster looks, I don't think we're going to see a lot of Marcus Sasser, but that doesn't mean long term I'm still not excited to have him on the team. I think he's going to be a really good shot maker, whether it's coming off the bench or, I mean, I can't see him probably starting with this core, but I'm excited to watch.
Camille, that was fantastic timing. Yes, he is, and now he is out for the moment. So, yeah, let's. I'm gonna get going on answering a question here, and then we will bring Jack on in. Let's see if I can do this solo. Yeah, lost him down under. Love it. Yeah. All right. Well, speaking of Doug here, you just asked a really good question, and it's something I've been thinking about a lot too. This is brought up, I think a few times now on our Pistons ball streams. But do you guys believe a big move is coming, or just to wait for OKC to release a player since we have waiver dibs? I think this is a really good question, and I'm not quite sure which way it's going to lean, because obviously OKC, I think they're going to have 4 or 5 guys that they have to offload. And the curveball here, if the Pistons do like one of those guys and they do want to add them to the roster, it's pretty possible that a lot of other teams do. So just because do as well. I mean, so just because the Pistons have the top waiver priority doesn't mean you're not sitting there with a pretty major risk of someone else jumping you, making a trade for that guy that you thought you wanted, and we're going to put the claim in there, number one. So I almost think it's going to be a trade, even if it is with OKC. Like I really like Usman Garuba. Trey Man will be great. I wouldn't really love taking a shot at Poku, but I would get it. I would understand if they do want that. I mean, he obviously has a lot of talent at his size, but I think for most of those guys, there are probably a few teams that would like to take a shot, especially if they know that they would otherwise be released, otherwise be waived. And you could theoretically get them for nothing if they pass all the way through the waiver crane, the waiver wire. So I do kind of think if it's going to be a move, even if it's with OKC, I do think it would be a trade. Just because they clearly have someone that they'd prioritize, someone that they target, and I think that's probably the avenue they'd need to go down in order to get him. Oh, good timing. Jack's popping back in.
So sorry.
You're, you're good. We had some good comments here from Camille with you doing the mannequin challenge. And then when you left out, Doug mentioned that I lost you down under, and I thought these were pretty fantastic. So I just answered this one, and then we'll get to more obviously as we go. But curious to get your thoughts on it too. It was if we believe a big move is coming, or just wait for OKC to release a few players. I said I kind of think that if there's a player that the Pistons do want on the OKC roster, even though they have the top waiver claim, they'd probably need to trade for him because if that player is desirable, some other team might because they don't have top waiver claim. So I'm expecting a trade and not waiting for the waiver wire. But curious on your insight to that as well.
Yeah, I think we discussed it last week. I think the OKC thing could be a factor. I also think the Damian Lillard trade and potential James Harden trade, maybe the Pistons are trying to help facilitate those deals by being a third team. I don't know if what the Pistons could get out of that could be classified as a big move, but I guess they would be technically a part of a big move. So maybe they could grab a pick out of that or a young player, maybe even a veteran who's, got a sizable contract. So yeah, we spoke about some of the OKC players last week. They've obviously got to make some roster decisions on guys like Aaron Wiggins, Trey Mann, Usman Garuba, I think Ty Washington. At least 2 to 3 of those names likely might not be on the roster. So I don't know how those guys fit with Detroit. I think Garuba would be a fun guy to bring in. He's got some size. He's really good defensively. He shot the ball pretty well with Houston, but it was on very, very low volume. So, yeah, I could see Troy being interested in those guys. He obviously still has very good ties with the OKC organization. So I'm sure he's, in touch with people there, like he probably is with the rest of the league. But I think you know what I mean by that.
Yeah, Jeremiah Robinson Earl is an interesting name too. I just can't imagine that they'd get rid of him. I mean, I think he's solid.
Yeah.
He's a good prospect. So I'd just be surprised. All right, I just had to do a little bit of research for this one. This is actually my wife, so I'm obligated to bring it up. She wants to know if you've seen the Barbie movie, and for all of our viewers, I confirmed that this was released a couple weeks ago in Australia. So you could have.
I've seen it.
It was feasible.
I've seen
You've
it.
seen it?
Yeah, I went and saw it it would have been Saturday night. It was
Nice.
I'm not a big movie guy, to be honest. Like I do go to the cinemas occasionally. That was like one of the best movies I can remember watching. It was awesome. I went with my girlfriend and like the first 5 minutes of the movie, I'm like, how does this turn into what's the story going to be here? And yeah, like Ryan Gosling, playing Ken, that was just hilarious. Like I could watch a spin-off just with Ken.
For sure.
Just the stereotypes and everything. It was I loved it. And from what I've seen, a lot of people did. So I didn't even know what to expect going in, but it was, that's a movie I'll definitely watch and again across the next 10 years or something. I loved it. Have you seen it?
I have. Yeah, we went with her sister, all decked out in the pink. I mean, guys, I had the pink button down, short sleeve collar shirt going, hair flipped back. I was feeling good. I think the pink really, really did elevate my experience of the Barbie movie too. I do have to say, it felt pretty good. Yeah, it was hilarious. The opening little sci-fi reference that I don't want to ruin was hilarious. That had me rolling. And then
It was great. I might go back and watch it at the cinema. Like, I've never been so intently focused on a movie the whole time and just laughed so much.
It was good. Now you got to go see the other half of Barbenheimer, Oppenheimer. That was a good one. I enjoyed that as well.
Hey, see, this is me just having no, like, I'm not plugged in with like the movie world. Is there actually a real
I'm a
connection there? Is
big
it just
movie
because
guy.
they came out? Is it just because they came out at a similar time and they're both really good movies?
Yeah, so they're both big like summer blockbuster movies, and they came out on the same day. And they're like so ridiculously opposite subject matter that like mash up the poster, and it's just really
Yeah.
funny.
Yeah, so I'm assuming because I saw some people like went and watched both back to back. So like the cinemas for
Yeah,
like
that
5
was
or
the thing.
6 hours.
That was the thing. And
So I think I'll
Oppenheimer's
have to
not short. We did it. It was a great movie. It was
yeah,
incredible. 3 hours. Whew. It's a
it's a
long
long
time
time.
at a theater.
That's a long time. I'm gonna have to go see that. Maybe this weekend.
I'd
See.
recommend it. I'm a big. I love movies though.
Yeah.
All right, that's probably enough non-Pistons.
Well, before we get back into the comments, there was something before I dropped out. I wanted to talk about, we just saw some very, very brief clips of Cade Cunningham just shooting a couple of 3-pointers. We don't even see if they go in. The Pistons posted them on their socials if anyone hasn't seen them. But what are your expectations for Cade Cunningham as a 3-point shooter next season? I'm talking
So
mainly percentages, but just, yeah.
yeah, I've kind of like, I don't want to say I've soured on it since draft day, but I've definitely dropped my expectations long term of what he's going to be as a shooter, percentage wise. Not the type of shooter. I still think he's going to be a really good shooter. I just think his shot diet, right? The types of threes
Yeah.
he's going to be taking. He's not going to be getting a lot of catch and shoot looks. Like even if you let Jaden Ivey initiate offense every now and then, he's just not going to get a large quantity of catch and shoot shots every game. So I think next year, I mean, my hopeful number is probably like 34-ish, 35%, somewhere in that range, while shooting a lot of them. I mean, 6, 7, 8, right? 6, 7, 8 attempts. And because most of those are self-generated, he's going to be a good shooter. It's just it's not going to show up all that much in the percentages. Long term, like I don't think he's ever going to be a 40% guy. I'm not sure he's even going to be, a 38% guy. I think he's probably sitting at 36, 37, pushing upwards of 7, 8 attempts per game. And because all of those are coming off of pull ups off screens, isolations, and then maybe one or two catch and shoots tops, like that's actually a really good number. So excuse me, that's where I'm at with it. Yeah. I think long term, that's a good number. And then next year, I'd be just a little lower, but like I wouldn't be shocked, DJ. I wouldn't be shocked at all if he got 36.
Yeah, I'm right in line with you. I think around 35%. I think above 35% would be really good for this upcoming season. And yeah, like you said, in general, the context is when looking at his percentage overall from three, it's going to be a touch misleading because like you said, I still think many of those are just going to be coming out of pick and roll or just isolation, maybe like him stepping back, taking a three. A lot of those are going to be coming off the dribble, which naturally those shots are low percentage shots and your overall percentages are going to dip if that's your primary sort of shot from three. So, and when you look at the roster once again, I feel like him and Jaden are going to play, Jaden Ivey, that is, going to play a lot of minutes together, which I still think Cade's going to have the ball most of the time. And I could see Monte Morris taking the ball a little bit out of Cade's hand, and maybe finding him for a couple of catch and shoot threes each game. But still, I feel like 2/3 of his shots from three will be off the dribble. Just like probably all of his shots, like 75 to 80% of Cade's shots are all going to be coming by off the dribble. So I think if he can get to 35% next season, that'd be a really good leap forward because in his first couple of seasons, he shot 30% from three. And last season, he shot 28% from three, I believe. And if you dig a little bit deeper, looking at his catch and shoot numbers, like they hover around 30% as well. So that's where you want to see the improvement come on those catch and shoot looks. Because when he does get those looks that might be few and far between, he is cashing in on those because that will obviously help his game. So yeah, I think around the 35% mark, 34% wouldn't be disappointing. But yeah, if you get 35%, I'd be pretty pleased with that outcome for him and the team.
So just to illustrate this point that you and I are talking about here with his shot selection, the way he's going to get his threes, just a random question. Trae Young's a good shooter, correct? Like, do you agree with that statement? Is Trae Young a good shooter in the NBA?
I actually,
Yes or no?
I don't think so. Well,
Okay.
he is. No, he is a good shooter. But anyway, sorry, you shouldn't have asked me.
All right, miscalculation on my part, but general consensus: Trae Young's a pretty good shooter, at least above average. He's a good shooter for the types of shots that he takes. Well, last year, probably a down year, it was 33.5%. His career high is 38, and his career average at this point is 35. And that's a guy that's taken over 7 3-point attempts a game, a lot of them off ISO or off screens, which is a very similar volume, a very similar type of shot that we're thinking Cade's going to get. Like, Steph Curry is just not common. Steph Curry's doing this stuff all the time. He's over 40% and he's ISOing step back from like 45 feet for no reason. And it's just net no matter what. The rest of the league guys that take that kind of shot diet, that have that amount of that type of 3-point shots, it usually doesn't get up all that high. So even if he stays the same, if the quantity goes up and he's still at like 33 and a half, I'm not too worried about it. I think it'll jump up eventually. Yeah, and
Definitely.
Camille here is exactly right. I've got the basketball reference page pulled up. 1 year, which was last year, was 38, and he's kind of been fluctuating between that 33 and 38 range roughly since his rookie year. So his rookie year, it was 32 and a half. Following year, 36. Following year, 34. Then 38. And now touch under 34. So
Yeah,
it's just kind of up and down with all of that. And it's usually,
definitely.
unless you're Steph Curry, not over 40%.
And I think, like, yeah, for sure. And the only other guy throwing that conversation is Damian Lillard and maybe Desmond Bain, but he's by himself. But like, I'm with you, and I think if you like watching the games, you will know and feel if Cade's like making the shots he should be making and the ones he shouldn't. I know that might sound a bit stupid, but like I know from just watching him during his rookie season and early last season, like you can sort of tell the shots he should be making. I don't know. I just feel like there's a sense of if you watch the games, you'll be able to tell if his shots improved or not. I feel like
Quick, you
those
brought up
overall
Damian Lillard.
percentages. Yeah.
You obviously think Damian Lillard's a good shooter, right?
Have I stuffed my? Yeah.
Yeah. I just had to make sure I got the example. So Damian Lillard's career is 37% on 8 attempts, and he's had a year of 34, 33, 36, and 37. So he's even fluctuating between that like 35 to 39 for him for the most part, which is ridiculous. And he's obviously a top end guy.
That's all. Like that's actually
Proves it even more. Yeah.
exactly. Yeah. No, for sure. I thought they would have been a little bit higher, but there you go. That just shows like, I mean, he takes a high degree of difficulty shots, but yeah, just backs up, I guess, your point, Wes.
He's got 3 seasons over 39%. One of them was 40. The other two were 39 and 39 and a half. So
Gotcha.
by and large, I would say his average is 37. So let's see, what is this for Doug? I don't even read it. Oh yeah, 100%. And that
Doug's
that is
just
part of what
yeah,
Cade's mantra was coming into the league, right?
definitely. Doug is just what I was trying to just say before about watching the games, and you'll feel the ones like Doug's just put it
Yeah.
in a much more understandable, concise way. I 100% agree with what he's saying. Definitely.
Well, and the other stuff is the backbreakers, right? When you're you can feel it. You can feel the momentum. You're about to go on a run. The other team's getting a little demoralized, and then you kick the ball over to Damian Lillard on a catch and shoot. Like the ball's going in. He's
Exactly.
making the shot,
I,
right? If Cade could be that kind of guy, even if he's shooting 35, 36% from three, that's huge too. Just give me
definitely.
the
I think
backbreakers and the clutch ones.
exactly. And I feel like he showed that clutch gene in his rookie season for sure,
Mhm.
especially at
He
the
did.
start, like, especially the first half of the season. I remember he was like, in terms of clutch percentages, like he was right up there as a rookie and it tailed off towards the end of the season. But yeah, making those backbreaker threes and just those important ones when you're on, like, when you're on an 8-0 run after trailing by 14 points and Cade's got to
Hmm.
look to get it within one or go ahead. Like they're the ones that I was trying to talk about. Like you want to see him make. They're the ones you feel like
Yeah.
he should be making. Um, so yeah, great point from Doug.
Yeah. Gosh, how much did we see that last year, right? Pistons were down 10. They go on a 6-0 run, kick it over to whoever from three wide open. And you're like, yeah. Oh, and it just sucks the air out of the sails. Those are
Literally,
important.
for sure, for sure. All right. Do we want to move into some questions?
Yeah. Let's get back into it.
Going here, we've got Camille. Shout out to Camille as per usual for joining us. I think not adding multiple wings and a solid power forward will give us a headache. I hope we can exceed our expectation. So, what is the current? If we look at the depth chart, who do we have on the wing? We have Boyan, Livers, Asar Thompson.
Harris,
There's true
Burks,
wings.
just true wings. Yeah. So it's Boyan, Harris, Asar. I mean, I don't even know if I'd throw Livers in that. I do think he's a little bit more of a four, even though he can't rebound the ball. I just don't think he can handle it like a wing. So that's probably it.
And then I
Those
assume
three.
that by saying a solid power forward, Camille doesn't see Stu as the four, which I think the franchise does to an extent. I'm not saying starting four, definitely, but I think they see him as a four man. Um,
Yeah.
are you concerned about, I guess, the wings for this upcoming season?
I'm I think the concern for me kind of shifts around depending on where they think that they can play Bojan and Asar. Like if they think that those two can play together, I'm a little more concerned about the wing because then if Harris goes down, like do you shift Burks up if Harris gets hurt and move Sasser in? Like now you're pretty small. I'd be more worried about the wing there. And if they don't think Kassar and not Harris and Boyan can play together, then I'm less worried about the wing, but a little bit more worried about the power forward position because I would pretty much only be confident in Stu playing positive minutes at the four at that point, and literally no one else. So I think it shifts, but I think part of that honestly is that this was a 17 win team last year. I mean, they're returning a decent amount of the roster, and they had so many injuries that a lot of these guys are still major question marks. It would have been great to figure out if Livers can do this thing for real or not last year, but just because of how often he got hurt, we really didn't. Obviously, that's the case with Cade, and there was just a lot of that up and down the roster. So I get why they didn't address it because now is the year to figure it out, right? But I also very much understand the concern. I'm concerned about those forward spots as well.
Yeah, definitely. I think so. Definitely in the short term, like Boyan's going to provide a lot as a scorer, but we know his weaknesses as a player. And then Asar, I just think he's going to take some time. Like I said in the opening, I think he's going to have plenty of moments that you see those flashes, but um, just offensively in the half court, I can see. Yeah, I just don't think the shot's there and won't be for a while. So I think a lot of these guys who will be playing minutes at the 3 or 4 do have significant holes at one end of the court right now.
Yep.
Even like I forgot to mention Joe Harris, but you brought him up. Like he can shoot the lights out, but defensively, how does that go? Isaiah Livers, I think he's solid defensively, and offensively he does. Like this is the thing with Isaiah Livers. Like I could put together, and I have put together like a thread before, or like highlights of all the little things he does. That just if you're a basketball junkie, like you see that stuff, and you're like, well, that's like you love seeing that stuff. Like it's fun, but just the totality of his game, like he's still yet to really have a stretch of games where you feel confident that he should be a part of an NBA rotation. Like, and some of that's because of injury. Some of that's the 3-point shots sort of dropping off last season. Like he shot 36%, which is a solid number, but he's not Cade Cunningham. A lot of his are spot up attempts. So that needs to be higher for him to warrant significant minutes. So, yeah, I definitely get the concern in that area of the roster, particularly across the next 1 to 2 seasons. I think the belief would be that Asar comes along as he'll be the starting 3. And I still think part of the organization thinks Stu will be the starting 4. But I also don't think they're going to pigeonhole Stu into that 4 spot forever. Like this is his chance to show I think he can be a starting 4. But yeah, it's definitely, the other 3 positions sort of like seem set, as in Cade, Ivy, and Duran, at least in terms of potential. So I get fans concerned in that area of the roster.
Yeah, and I guess on a positive note, I I'm pretty sure. I'd be surprised if I was wrong, but I'm pretty sure that this is the first year we're going in with at least one, if not two, prospects at each position that we're curious to see how it goes for, right? Like there's potential there, it could work out. Let's see how it works. Let's see what happens. Um, that hasn't always been the case in the past, and I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing that it looks like those guys, majority of them at least, are going to get decent amount of minutes, especially early on. So yeah, I mean, it's a trade-off, right? You could have a whole roster of vets and win 38 games and it'd be a whole lot more entertaining, but long term, this is probably better.
And I think the other thing as well is like no roster is ever going to be perfect. So like the Piston rosters, I think what typically happens is how good your top 3 players are can mask and cover a lot of holes on a roster. Like there's no perfect roster. So even once this team gets to where we think it will get, maybe just the wing position, as important as it is, maybe they just never get like a Paul George or someone of that talent there. Like maybe it eventually just gets filled by players like Torrey Craig in 4 years' time. Not Torrey Craig, but a veteran like him who's just there to shoot corner threes and defend. Like not every position on this roster is going to be filled by like a 5-star high school recruit. Like as this roster matures, they will just bring in veterans to plug holes, and then you hope that Cade, Jaden, and Jalen Duran, those 3 can cover, their talent supersedes any holes. Like I think sometimes just going through this rebuild, we try and plug, okay, we need now to draft a power forward with the top 5 pick this year. And it's just, I don't think that's sort of how team building works sometimes.
Yeah,
You get your
no, I'm
guys, build around them.
lockstep with you.
Yeah. All right. Next question from Doug. Do you guys believe the defense can improve with better coaching on top of some athleticism improvements?
I think it can. If it will is a different question because a lot of that athleticism is really young. Um, I mean, you're hoping for Cade being able to stay in front of really quick guys, which isn't always the easiest thing for him to do, especially without fouling. You're hoping Jaden Ivey continues to show the on-ball defense that he did in summer league, but also be a lot more aware off ball. You want Asar to translate everything you did in summer league, and also probably improve a little bit of his gambling issue, which made sense that he was in Vegas for it. That always cracked me up. But and then Duran, it's a lot of leaps. We've talked about it a few times, so it could all happen. Monty's a good defensive coach. They've got a really experienced staff. They've got that Dan Burke. I think Bryce looked this up. I'm not sure Dan Burke has had a bottom 15 defense in his coaching career. So that'd be great. I don't know if it's going to happen. Wait and see for me. That's a wait and see.
Yeah, for sure. It's the end of the floor. Like, I'm excited, don't get me wrong, to watch individual players offensively, but the defensive end, I think, is crucial for this team getting close to the play-in, because they're just so young. And that's why, look, they have brought in, I guess, on paper, some impressive coaches. And I just spoke about the impact I think Monty can have and the assistants. But I also think that doesn't necessarily mean that previous coaches Detroit have had sucked at all. I think Dwayne Casey's a proven really, really solid to good. Yeah, I think he's a good NBA coach, and I think he's had assistants who have had success at other teams. And I think largely what let them down was just having a rebuilding roster. So I don't think the defense has been horrible because Dwayne Casey was trying to suck or can't coach. Like, he's a good NBA coach, and I think he's had good, solid coaching staffs beneath him. I think it's been a
Remember,
byproduct.
Dwayne Casey was the mastermind that shut down LeBron for Dallas during their championship. I mean, this was a
Exactly,
defensive coach. That's why he
exactly,
kept getting jobs. Well
exactly. So
respected too.
I don't think I don't think Doug's trying to say last season's coaches suck, but when I
Yeah.
see like people getting on coaches last season, I just sort of tend to think I get your frustration, and the coach is the person, they have to wear that scrutiny. It's part of their job. But I also just think um, having a young roster, it's just like you can't be on the floor. Like, as you said, Wes, the coach isn't on the floor. So they can't help with missed rotations. They can highlight and point them out, but ultimately it's on the players. And just having young guys, they need time to grow. So I've gotten a little bit off topic here, but I do think the defense can improve next season, and it's the end of the floor that I think will help them win more games if they improve there, for sure.
Agreed.
All right. Next question again from Doug. A CBS analyst suggests that Jaden Ivey will be much improved next year. I guess
Oh,
I
okay.
like
This
the
wasn't a
question.
question. I brought it
Okay.
up because I wanted to ask you a question about it. That's why I
Yep.
started this one. Do you think Jaden Ivey could be the most improved player on this team next year? And what would he have to do to be that?
Okay. This is tough because it's pretty much I I still think Jalen Duran's a year away from really improving. So I'm going to
Me too.
say I still think, yeah, I think Jalen Duran comes in his third season. We see a leap from him. Um, man, this is tough. If it is Jaden Ivey, I think it happens because he is doing less on ball and he's thriving off ball as a shooter, as a cutter, and he's able to fix up his finishing around the rim because that was an area of his game that dropped off coming from college, which is to be expected. You're going against better athletes, better rim protectors. So I'm not concerned about it, but he improved as a shooter in the mid-range from three. I think playing alongside Cade does help him a lot, and I think it will help his scoring. So I don't know, though. It's tricky because Cade, he had some really, really good games last season.
Mhm.
Like he had prior to like that last game in Boston really sunk his numbers. Like his 3-point shooting wasn't great, but like he was putting up like all-star numbers. And I don't know, Wes, what do you think?
I wouldn't pick him. I think he'd be one of three guys that I would say could do it. The other being Cade. And then if Isaiah Livers gets to play and he is what he's advertised as, he's got an argument for it. But in order for him to actually do it, I think, man, like he'd need to be getting up over 22, 23 points a night, have a decent amount of like highlight reel dunks that are getting on ESPN. And then on top of that, his defense is at least rotationally passable. And if he does all of those things and Cade even just shows up exactly what he was last year, I think he might have an argument. I think he might, but
Yeah. Just to
I would be
clarify, are
betting
we
on it.
talking, we're not talking about like winning the actual most improved award.
Ooh.
We're just saying who will be. Okay, cool. Um,
No, I was just saying the dunks and ESPN thing because then he'd be getting the
yeah,
fans' attention and people would be
yeah,
saying he would be.
yeah. See, I like you said with Kate, if he just comes in the same player he was last season, I think he only played 12 games, but for 8 to 9 of those, he was like, he was like I said, putting up all-star numbers. So if Kate just
It was
comes in
like
as that same
26,
guy,
8, and 8 or something like that. It was insane.
yeah, it really was. It was crazy. And he was just commanding games. So, but then again, would you? That's why I'm leaning towards saying Jaden, because Jaden could come in and really improve and thrive, and his numbers, just percentage wise, could look a lot better
Mhm.
alongside Cade. And Cade, I don't know, I'm getting tangled in the web here. I think it's Cade. I'll just say Cade. As much as I love
I
Jaden, I
think it's
think,
probably Cade.
yeah.
Fingers crossed it's Cade. That'd be huge if it is.
So that was a great. I like this. That's a horrible answer from me. um, Another one from Doug. Shout out to Doug. Appreciate all the questions.
That's our
Fellas, what are
guy.
your expectations for Harris and Morris? I believe with Burks, they're going to do real damage.
So I think we kind of mentioned this last week, and I'm going to stand by it. I mean, I think one, those three guys are your backup one, two, and three. I think they're all going to play at least to start the year. And I mean, I can't think of a better 3-point shooting trio off the bench that the Pistons have had in my time watching it, watching the team. So I think they're going to do a lot of damage on offense. I think the other might be just a little bit rough, but if you're lighting the rim on fire from three and moving the ball on offense, I mean, I don't think it really matters going up against bench guys, right? I mean, you're not really going to be playing them against starting ones, twos, and threes. They're going to be going up against the bench. So, yeah, I think they could do a lot of damage. I think they could all be cracking double digits or close to it in points per game. And it could be a lot of fun when the starters come out. I mean, there's some real firepower scoring wise for you off the bench there with those three guys.
Yeah, I definitely can't remember a better shooting trio off the bench. I can't remember the Pistons having just three shooters like this at once on a roster. So, like, um, I do think so. Joe Harris is the one for me. Like, I think every night Burks and Monte Morris will be in the rotation. Every night they're available to play. It's Joe Harris. I think he will sort of, like, I could see him missing a game or two and then playing, the next three. But I do think he'll be part of the rotation, just not every single night. Unless Monty just goes with like 11 guys, or the way Joe Harris makes a 10-man rotation, just in my head, is if Wiseman and Bagley both don't play, which I also don't think that's going to happen. But yeah, I'm excited to watch them shoot. It's just going to make life a lot easier on the guards for sure. Getting that
Especially if
spacing.
you're gonna get into the like staggering game a little bit with Ivy and Cade. I mean,
Yeah,
the more you can space the floor for those guys, the better, right? You got opportunity up and down the roster to do that, and that's a lot of fun.
definitely. definitely. DJ Griffin, do you think Killian is traded before training camp?
No, I don't.
Oh, when does training
I
camp
don't
typically start? Like mid-September?
mid to early, I think. I think. Um I would we talked about this last week too, and it got really dark and negative, and it wasn't a good place to be. But um if Killian Hayes had any positive trade value, he'd be gone. He wouldn't be on this team. That's my guess. That I'm not like reporting that. Obviously, I don't have any sources at all. But just I don't know. When you've got a point guard and then you pretty much insert three guys all acquired for assets that are definitely going to play at some point, and you stick all three of them directly above him on the roster, and like we keep forgetting too that Burks can play point guard in spurts. So like there's a world where he's actually the sixth, I think,
Yeah.
guard or point guard guy that can play point guard minutes. Like he's gone. They don't want him anymore. So the if he had value, he'd be gone. If they could have gotten a pick for him, a second round pick for him, they would have done it. If I think the alternative at this point is he's added onto a bigger trade for salary, or I mean, God forbid they waive him. I would expect him to be around. I'd be absolutely floored if they haven't been working the phones since draft night to move on from Killian Hayes. And the fact
Yeah.
that he's still around, I
I
don't think
feel
he's going
like
anywhere.
really, see, I think he'll be traded definitely before the start of the season, or he won't be on the roster before the start of the season. But I don't know if that's before training camp. I think
Just
the
don't
whole
know
league,
why you'd waive him. Like that.
yeah,
That's the thing I keep coming back to. Like,
maybe.
if you really can't find anything for him, why would you just why waive him? Keep him on the roster in case you need to add salary at the deadline or something. He's just you're not going to pick up his restricted free agent rights anyway at this point. Like, what's the harm?
Unless like I don't. This was probably violates tampering rules. So, but unless like he has something set up with another team, and the agent Troy wants to keep that relationship with Killian's agent, I don't know. Maybe they waive him and he signs. But yeah, like you said, I guess if Killian was going to sign with another team, it'd probably be on like a minimum, and he'd be on more money. I don't know. I'm getting into areas I don't know well enough to talk about. So, but I do think I would. I think Killian would want to find another team. Like I can't imagine.
Oh,
Like, and his agent. Like I think the writing's on the wall clearly, as you just outlined with the depth chart. Once again, taking another point guard in the first round. This draft is that's 3 straight.
and then
So trading up, yeah, to take another point guard. Like, so, yeah, I don't mind that. JD Osman. I didn't know Osman was on
that's
San
what I was going
Antonio.
to say. I don't mind it either. So it's not happening.
Yeah.
Because you know what Chetty
Yeah.
Osman and Danilo Gallinari are? They are guys that are legitimate NBA players that could get minutes for pretty much any non-playoff roster, and you wouldn't be upset about it.
The only reason I
I
could see
can't
this,
say that about Killian. Can you say that about
yeah,
Killian? I can't.
no. But the only reason I could see the Spurs doing it is because they have Trey Jones, who I think he started a lot last season, but I think ultimately is a backup point guard. So maybe I'm not saying they would think Killian's a starter, but I can see why they might be willing to take a shot on like a point guard with some previous pedigree or however you want to frame it. And they've got a lot of wings.
Wembanyama would
Like,
be needing to pull so many strings. He'd need
yeah,
to
I forgot
love Killian, and he'd be up in the front office saying, "Pop," and
yeah,
was it RC
get
Buford?
this. Yeah.
Get my boy. He's our starting point guard.
Like because look, the Spurs, I think they have Vassell, they have Keldon Johnson. I feel like I'm missing out on a couple of other wings, so maybe Osman
Yeah, they're
is expendable. But yeah, the Spurs seem like the team that could take a shot at him. Not sure for Osman though. All right.
Well, to your point, they're one of the only teams with like legitimate point guard minutes that's also more or less rebuilding.
Yeah.
So like,
Um,
yeah, absolutely.
Like, because Washington they brought in Jordan Poole. I know he's a combo guard,
Mhm.
and they've also got Johnny Davis, who I presume they want to try give minutes now and figure out what he is, especially while they're rebuilding.
Oh,
So
wow.
yeah, I was high, really high on Johnny Davis.
God, no. You didn't even have him in
Oh,
the
you
lottery
at all?
at all.
Really?
I don't think anyway. I don't think I had him in
I
the lottery. Maybe I had him at 14.
I just loved. I got completely sucked in. Like, I didn't do that much draft stuff last year, but watching him like play defense really sucked me in.
The only thing I'm proud of from last year's draft is I was actually really high on what is it, Usman Dieng, the Thunder guy.
Oh yeah,
And I
Zhang. Yeah,
had
yeah, yeah,
him like mid lottery, and that's about where he went. And I was like,
yeah.
suck it, Bryce. Like you do all your draft stuff, but I know more about Usman Dieng.
Oh man. Um. All right. Are you able to bring up the next question, Wes? My laptop seems to
Yeah.
have frozen.
All right, this one is from our guy Camille. So, who do you want for the 15th roster spot in case we don't make any trades? Someone who knows the team like Magruder, nice, nice YouTube user, a veteran like Ross or Danny Green. Do you have someone in mind? But props to YouTube user because that's the correct opinion.
Yeah, I clicked to bring that one up just before my laptop froze. All right. Who do you want for the 15th roster spot? I was surprised they didn't bring Magruder back. So there's Magruder and Hamadou Diallo who are still free agents, I believe. I don't think Hamadou's coming back, although we spoke about it last week with Bryce. Like, he'd be an amazing 15th man. I'm assuming that's not what he wants. But I think another veteran is the way to go. I think this team has enough young guys, and they brought in more veterans via trade. And I still think adding another vet would be good. Like Magruder, I think there is still a chance Magruder comes back to Detroit. I think there's a really good relationship there. I think everything's just on hold because of this Lillard trade right now, much like the Kevin Durant stuff last offseason that sort of held up free agency. I think a veteran. There's not someone that stands out. I actually like those names. Danny Green's a high character guy. Terrence Ross, I know he can shoot. If it was out of Terrence Ross and Magruder, though, I'd bring back Magruder. I know the Pistons players love him. He's been a really good addition throughout this rebuild. So, I'm just going to say Magruder. Stuff it. I really like what he brings. And whenever he actually plays, he'll have like these odd 20-point games. He's a bucket. He actually is a bucket. So, I think he's everything you'd want in the 15th roster position.
Yeah, I'm with you. I would lean towards a vet for that 15th spot too. And I mean, I'd love to bring Magruder back. He's a guy that is happy in that mentor role, but also isn't, awful when you put him out on the court if you need to, if he's pressed into action. So yeah, I'd be down. I'd be down with that. I kind of wonder if they aren't hoping to like flip two guys for one young prospect or something, and then also go ahead and sign a guy like Magruder, so you could kind of get the best of both worlds. Because if we remember, all of the rumors were, at least before free agency, before the draft and all that, were that they wanted to bring him back. I think James Edwards was talking about that. It was probably a high likelihood he'd return. So yeah, I don't know. That's kind of where I'm at with it. I'm with you on a vet. I just wonder if they're, fingers crossed, they can move two so they can get something interesting and then still bring back a guy like Rodney.
Yeah. Well, there's obviously a lot more to play out. Well, not a lot more, but I feel like Rodney really entrenched himself with the organization. So
Yeah, he did.
I feel like there's still a spot for him. There's just some moves to play out first. I appreciate it, Doug.
Yeah,
All right.
Doug, you're the man.
Speaking
Speaking
of,
of,
Doug, is there anything about the off-season moves or non-moves that disappoint you?
okay, so we
I
could go
think I know
back.
what you're
I'm
going to
on
say.
record. I'm on record before, like when all of the free agency rumors and all that were coming out. I did not want to spend a single cent of long-term money. I was against the idea from the beginning. So this was actually a pretty ideal offseason for me. My only like qualm with it was the guy that they drafted at 5. And
I knew.
I'm behind him now, so I'm rooting for him to prove me extremely wrong. So yeah, I'm happy with it. There wasn't really anything that disappointed me. Um, I mean, I would have liked taking a run at Grant Williams because he did end up being so cheap. But I mean, outside of that, Joe Harris is a great shooter. I've really liked Monte Morris since the Denver days for him, and yeah, I was good with everything they did. No long term money outside of the Stu extension. Thumbs up.
Yeah, like I can get why people might be disappointed, and like I would have been super happy if they signed Cam Johnson. Like I was behind that, but at the same time, like around free agency, I was off my phone for 48 hours. So when I logged back into Twitter and saw the moves that were made, like I was really happy. Like I love Monte Morris, um, like as a player. And then Joe Harris, I just thought that was like a, you know, not going to say it's an amazing, Troy Weaver's the best GM ever, but I think that was a bit of a smart move. You got some second round picks. You got an excellent shooter, a dynamic shooter off the catch, at least off ball. So yeah, I don't know. Look, like you, Wes, I wasn't the highest on Asar, but after seeing him play, I think I get the vision. I see how he fits with the core. I think he's going to, just his personality being around him at Summer League. I didn't talk to him, but I was very close to him, and just the way his demeanor, professionalism, and just hearing some stories about his work ethic, like I think he's an awesome piece to add. So while I was a little bit disappointed draft night and in the days leading up to the draft, hearing that was probably who the Pistons were going to select, yeah, I'm not disappointed because ultimately I think this team just needs to stay healthy. They need their best player to be healthy. Yeah. And it's still just, I think both of us are more on the patient side with this rebuild. So they didn't make any moves to stuff up their future or disrupt the rebuild. So hence why I'm not really disappointed, or there's nothing that really I thought, geez, that's a missed opportunity.
Right.
Grant, yeah, so not to be a mouthpiece per se, as some people get called, but yeah, that's just my honest thoughts. Like, I'm not like stoked and overly, going crazy for the off season, but I think it's been a really solid off season. If I had to give it a grade, I'd say it's a B to B plus. I think that Monty Williams signing really brings up that grade.
Yeah, no, agree. And then just to like clarify for me with this are like I'm just sticking by the draft evaluation because we've seen 4 games out of him and they were summer league. Like if he really starts picking it up in the first 10 games of the season, I will be swiftly changing what I think about him and all that. I'm trying to stay cautious with it. That's all. I'm not a hater. I'm not a Sar Thompson hater. I'm rooting for him.
No, for sure. Neither of us are.
Yeah.
All right, next question here from Doug again. Shout out to Doug. Appreciate it, man.
Appreciate you
helping
tonight,
us
man.
through. Yeah, helping us through this off season, keeping us busy. Maybe I'm delusional, but I think they can get to 36 or 37 wins. What has to go right to see that kind of improvement? Remember, I'm just out of my 12-step program. So what's a 12-step program?
Alcoholics Anonymous, the forgiveness program, basically is what it is.
Okay.
He's He's drunk on Kool-Aid. That's what he's saying. He's recently
Okay.
off the Kool-Aid. I
I
think,
thought,
honestly, Doug, man, you're the man, but I think you're probably still on the Kool-Aid a little bit. 36, 37 seems high to me. But, I mean, it's always possible, right? It's always possible. If Cade Cunningham literally shows up and is shooting a better percentage from three, but is still putting up, 26, 27, and then 8 rebounds and 8 assists like he was doing for that little stretch there to start the year. Like, okay, yeah, that's going to get you a lot of wins. That's going to get you a lot of wins. And then you're only hoping for marginal improvement from the rest of the young guys at that point. You're not hoping even for, the big leap from Ivy. You're just hoping for another couple points per game. You're not hoping for Sar Thompson to put up, 14 or 15 points. You're just hoping he breaks 10. Same with Duran. Like, if Cade's going to be that dude, then 36 or 37 is possible. 100%. I still wouldn't bet on it. But, like, that's the thing that has to go right. It has to be Cade Cunningham. He has to show up and basically look like an all-star. And then,
Yep.
yeah, just about anything's on the table if he's going to do that.
Yeah. I don't think you're delusional for thinking 36 or 37 wins, by the way. I think I've seen once we creep to 40 wins or more, maybe you're a bit deluded. But no, I think Wes, you outlined it. I think Cade pretty much has to be an all-star or on the bubble of being an all-star.
Yeah.
And like when I say also, like I think Cade can put up all-star numbers, but like this team has to be really like in the hunt, competitive, and like really in games. And I think the defense has to get close to being in the top 15 or at least very, very close to top 15 defensively, which I'm not sure about that. But yeah, I don't think you're deluded. I think you're optimistic, and I much prefer optimism over negativity. So shout out to you, Doug. All right. Next question here from DJ Griffin. What do you guys think of Dorian Finney-Smith? Nets reportedly are open to moving him. I feel like Wes has a friend with him.
Yeah, my
The
dog's freaking
canine
out about
variety.
something. I don't know what. Yeah. He's
He's
good now.
freaking out about Pistons playing playoffs. That prediction.
I don't know. There must have been some noise or something going on. Okay. Dorian Finney-Smith. I like Dorian Finney-Smith. He'd be a nice fit there at the 4, especially if he's going to shoot it fairly well. And he's a good defender too. If he's cheap, then yeah, that'd be great. I mean, maybe if they're really open to moving him, right? Maybe you could dump a Bagley or even a Killian Hayes with a 2nd-round pick or something. Like, that'd be great. I'd be down to do something like that. I just don't know what's likely at this point. Like, I just keep thinking about that Bojan trade last offseason. It came out of nowhere. It wasn't even really rumored, if I'm remembering right. Like, it was just, oh hey, yeah, they also just traded for Bojan Bogdanovic. Cool. Like, yeah, I don't know.
Was that just
I don't know what to
before
expect.
training camp? I feel like it was just before
Yeah, it
training
was
camp.
late August.
Really?
I swear it was late August. Because for the podcast, for the Pistons Pulse, we had already done like our player projections for the season. And then they traded for Bojan and like shifted everything under our feet on us. And I'm like, well, we can't like delete the episode. So, oh, well. Yeah, Doug. Yes. Yes, it is the dog days of August.
It is.
Stop shivering. You're fine. It's like a chihuahua right now. It's ridiculous. Anyway.
Look, I like Dorian Finney-Smith. Like you said, he would slide really well into that 4 position. We saw him play the 4 alongside Luka Doncic for a few seasons, or 3 to 4 seasons, and he quickly became one of the Mavs' best players, or most important players, just in terms of his versatility defensively, and then just a knockdown 3-point shooter. So I feel like that's what the Pistons think Isaiah Stewart could be. So, but yeah, I'm not sure what it would take in a deal. I think you threw out the Bagley contract. I don't know what the Nets want to do next season. Like, I feel like they want to compete. and field a team that's going to be in playoff contention. And I think they have enough talent, and I think Finney-Smith would be a piece. Yeah, I feel like I don't know what the Pistons have. Yeah, I'm not sure what the Pistons would have to send back that would help, because unless, like, I don't think they want to trial Killian Hayes. All the other Pistons, I'm not sure. Like, they have Nick Claxton. I can't imagine they really are interested in Wiseman. So I'm not sure about the deal, but he's a player I would be interested in if the deal makes sense.
Our guy YouTube user, September 22nd.
Whoa.
So that's like, might even have been days before training camp. Yeah, there's still a lot of time at this point. Lots going to happen.
Yeah, for sure. That must have been just during training camp. There you go. Thank you for that, YouTube user. Can you confirm if it's the same YouTube user from last week? All right, next question. Al Blouses. What do you think about the idea of playing a 5-out lineup with Cade? Do you think that would unlock his scoring potential?
I think it would look pretty good offensively. I'm not sure. My question is, nice. He is. It's the same one.
Yeah.
We appreciate you, man.
Appreciate it, bro.
So I'm not sure who the 5 would be if Stewart's jump shot isn't going to come along. Like, if that doesn't end up being a thing, I'm not sure who you'd really stick at the 5. I mean, maybe you get wild and you play Asar at the 5, right? Maybe that could be interesting. But, just like the general idea of it, if you can trot Cade out there with 4 other shooters who could also dribble the ball a little bit and pass the ball a little bit, like, it'd be fun to watch. I'll just say, I think it'd be a lot of fun to watch. I don't think it's something you're going to do a lot, but it would be entertaining, and he'd probably get a lot of buckets or assists.
Yeah, I think it definitely unlocks him. I'm trying to think. So it's sort of cut out there, but did you lay out a 5-out lineup the Pistons could field?
I didn't.
Who would?
But, man, all right. So obviously you got Cade running the point. You'd want Burks, Harris, Bojan, and Asar. I think that would be like my first gun at it.
Is that realistic?
Like, just see what happens.
I like
that
it.
is absolutely not realistic.
Like, no, I'm trying to think of it. I guess the realistic one in my mind would be probably Stu at the 5. If we're going to call him it, even though he's not a proven spacer. Bojan at the 4, Livers, Burks, Cade. Or you could, if you want to throw Ivy in there, I could see him shooting guard. But I think it would have Stu at the 5. They used to do it in Cade's rookie season and they'd have Trey Lyles at the 5, which defensively wasn't ideal, but offensively it wasn't bad.
That pump fake.
His pump fake was crazy. All right. Just Football Academy. Hi guys, Rocky here. Shout out to Rocky. I know he's from Australia. So there's a bunch of guys in our roster that are regularly injured. Do you think that is why we have a lot of overlapping players? Good question.
Yeah, and then he follows it up with this one too, lists out players that have been hurt, and then wondering if Darren always starts. He's not sure because of how young he is. So just to answer the first one, I mean, yeah, I think that's why all teams have a decent amount of overlapping players, right? I mean, you're always worried about the injury concerns. I think especially with the guys that this team has to play the 5, like if it really is going to be coming down to Wiseman or Bagley playing almost all of the backup 5 minutes, history says that one of them's going to get hurt, and it probably won't take all that long for that to happen. So, how important is it really who wins out in training camp, right? One of them might go down within a week or two. Yeah, but I think in general, it's always a good thing to have some overlapping talent, even if those guys aren't going to play. Just on the off chance something goes wrong. I mean, that's we mentioned it last week, right? But that's part of why it's so nice that there's no Kevin Knox. You're not really going to be relying on Jerry Roden to show up and play some minutes here and there. Buddy Boeheim's not going to really be getting minutes this year. Like none of the two-way guys, and it's because of this overlapping talent. So I think it's honestly a good thing that like, hey, you're gonna field a roster of about 13 to 14 NBA players.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. No, I'm with you. Like my only thing has been I just can't figure out a rotation, but that's just a personal thing for me. I think like I think having this many guys, or it's a mixture of established NBA players and then players like Wiseman who still have potential, Bagley
Yeah.
still have some potential there. So all players that you could see getting minutes on other teams as well, for sure. So yeah, I think there will definitely be injuries. There always is. Hopefully, that's not like last season, though, where it felt like the first 30 games, they were just constantly injured. Like we only saw Cade and Jalen Duran play like 30 minutes together. It didn't, Jalen never started with Cade in the lineup. So there will be injuries. There's some injury prone guys on this roster. You just have to hope they don't occur too frequently at annoying times. And there's no injury overlap.
As YouTube user here points out, has happened frequently before. And I think real quickly before we get to Duran, I think your point with the young guys, that like, yeah, you could see them getting minutes on other teams. I really think that's a good one to make, just because, go back a couple years ago, and everyone was kind of excited to see what Saban Lee had to offer the roster,
Yeah.
right? Like I'm not even sure he's in the league anymore. It's basically you've upgraded. Now it's all right, you don't have Saban Lee, but you got a guy like James Wiseman where like yeah, he has NBA talent. Question is, can he put it all together? The talent's no longer a question anymore on this roster. All of these players, by and large, have the talent to be an NBA guy, and now the question is if they can pull it off. It's not like, well, maybe, let's just see what happens. You're not asking that anymore. That makes me sleep a lot easier.
No, for sure. I'm with you, definitely. And the second part of that question was, do you think Durant always starts? I think he does. Unless he will only lose the starting position if he is takes significant step back from last season. Just with the bigs on this roster, yeah, I can't see a world where he's not starting. I think development, while it's not going to be as big of a priority as it has been the past 3 seasons, it's still in the top 2 to 3. Like, especially the development of Jalen Duran and Ivy and Cade Cunningham, that probably still is the number one thing, I should say. So I think I can't see a world where he doesn't start, even if he's struggling. He'd have to be horrible, really bad.
It'd have to be his fault, I think, at this point, right? Like I think it's his to lose. He would have to, I don't know, Wiseman would have to beat him out somehow in training camp, and that only happens if he's really, really, really bad in practices. I think that he's going to start all the games he's healthy enough to play, and I think for me, my rationale on it is the same reason I would like Asar to be starting all of the games that he's healthy enough to play. And it's just that you've got 4 guys that, for the most part, I mean, you would say as of today, like the future kind of rests in their hands. They all need to figure it out, and they need to figure it out together at about the same timeline. So, you're only really going to get that if they're going to play together, actually get all the minutes to experiment and work out those kinks. So, yeah, I think Duran's going to start. I would hope that Asar is going to start, and I think you just kind of roll with the roller coaster that's going to be, because both of those guys are not going to be, it's not Bojan. You don't know that you're getting 20 points on 40% from 3 every night. You're one night it might be, 20 and 10 from Duran, and the next he might look really bad and not be focused on defense. And I think you just got to rock with it.
I do think there'll be nights where he doesn't close. the game, whether that's from
Yes.
foul trouble or just they want to go small with Stewart the 5, or maybe Wiseman has outperforms and is having a really strong second half, something like that. But I think in terms of start, like, yeah, I think he has his name called every night unless he's and that the only other way, if he's not, like, this would feed into him playing horrible, and this is like, this won't happen, but like, say he's just really struggling with fouls, like really struggling to open the season. Like, he's constantly, like, I remember Andre Drummond used to always pick up like 2 fouls, like, and like, I could see them maybe because he's still so young saying, okay, look, we're going to bring you off the bench for a stretch here just to save you from yourself. But stop like taking yourself out of games early. But like, that is still such a stretch. Like, I think they would counteract that by maybe just taking him out after 4 minutes and bringing him back in. Yeah, those are just some of the other things I could think of.
The only one I can think of, and this is the last one, because I think we've exhausted all possibilities. If his conditioning really isn't there again, like last year, it felt pretty much once he started getting close to that 30-minute mark, he was gassed. He didn't have anything left. And I mean, he's so young, he's so big, he didn't play a lot of minutes in college. Like, it all made sense, right? Totally excusable, not a big deal. But if that's going to happen again this year, and he just looks like a guy that, like, even in year 2, we're not going to be able to get 25 minutes a night or more out of him, then I could see them just shifting him over to the bench and saying, if you're going to play bench minutes, you're going to come off the bench. Like, we need starters minutes from a starter. So that is the only other way I could see it happening, and I don't think that's all that likely.
For sure. Well, I think that's all the questions. I did want to just throw this random question at you I thought of. What has been your highlight of the Pistons rebuild? Like, in terms of a game, a moment, not a draft pick, not like, I don't know, just in terms of what has been your favorite game or moment since this rebuild started. We'll start in like Killian's rookie season. Favorite game or something.
Gosh, I can't pick a game from every year. I can't do that. But my favorite game so far from the 3 years that they've been rebuilding was that game. I think it was in Utah, where Cade just, like, it was his rookie year, and he just went off in the second half. They could not guard him. He single-handedly won the game. And I just remember them throwing every little thing they possibly had at him.
Yeah.
And I think he had one where he got bodied by 2 different guys falling away from the hoop with a hook shot, and it went in, and he's just like flexing on the floor. I'm like, yeah, this guy's good. I feel it now. I feel it. This guy's good. So that's probably my favorite game.
That one was early January. It's when the Pistons actually played at home. And I remember this was just Cade. Cade had been copying so much stick from the media just about his underperformance, his shooting percentages. Like, October, November were just like, he had some decent games, but yeah, that Utah game and a couple of games against the Cavs where he beat out Evan Mobley at home, those were really fun. But for me, mine's a bit biased.
Fun with the Denver game where he crossed up Jokic. That was fun.
Yeah.
That was a good one.
Yeah, that for sure. Mine would be, this is like biased, but it was when I actually went, the only Pistons game I've ever been to was in Boston just before the All-Star break in Cade's rookie season. Jeremy Grant basically hit a game winner. That was nuts because the Celtics were on like a 9-game winning streak. I went there with the expectations that if they are just even at quarter time, I'll be happy. And then it was close at halftime. Then 3/4 time, it was still close. And then, yeah, I think Cade had 20, Sadiq had 20, Jeremy had like 25. Yeah, they just beat pretty much. I think the Celtics had everyone except for like Rob Williams. Like, they were, yeah, they just traded of Derek White. That was like, yeah, that's been my favorite game by a mile. And of last season, the Golden State game where Sadiq hit the game winner was pretty special.
That was fun. Yeah, that was a good
Sweeping the Warriors in the season series is I'll take that.
Agreed. Oh
So.
gosh, Celtic commentary was awesome as well. I don't even remember what the commentary was, but it's the
Okay.
Celtics broadcasters. No way. No. They're awful. Awful. They're now the worst since Neil Funk in Chicago retired and walked away from it. Now the Celtics are the worst because it was
What we're
him.
gonna do? Maybe we save this for another episode. Commentary team rankings, because I like some,
I'm game.
and then there's
I'm
some
game.
that I find insufferable. And I actually, if the Pistons win the game, I go back and watch it on League Pass and listen to them in pain. So we'll
That'd be
say
a
that.
fun one. We'll do that. We'll do that.
I'm gonna say that because I feel like we have a really good conversation. I think that does it, Wes.
Yes.
Doug mentions here almost 90 minutes is a good job. Did you guys think we'd have such a good conversation? Well, thanks to you, Doug. We've had an excellent conversation. Thanks to everyone for tuning in, for all the questions, because as we let off within the show, there really is almost nothing to talk about apart from some of this Team USA stuff. So we really appreciate the support and the questions, because these truly are the dog days. And we have a dog with us.
Shout
Wes,
out to
what's your dog's
Chestnut
name?
making his debut on DBB
Yeah.
Live. Way to go, buddy. You did it. Good job. Good job.
So I think that does it, Wes. I'm not sure with the Team USA stuff if they still televise scrimmages or anything. I don't think they have since that Paul George horrible injury nearly 10 years ago now.
Yeah.
So, but I'm assuming we'll get some more Pistons content coming out of there with Cade and Jalen. But
Hey, maybe there's a trade.
maybe there's a trade. Maybe there's a trade. But as always, thanks to my co-host Wes. Thanks to Sean Court, the managing editor of the Detroit Bad Boys website. And thanks to everyone once again for your questions, your patience with my internet, and just bringing a great vibe to the stream. So we appreciate it as always. And we'll see you next week at 8 p.m. on Friday night. Until then, go Pistons.